We are on Project 4, City Promotion Cards. This is one of the chapters that you will have a problem with if your computer did not support OpenGL. To begin with, make sure you have downloaded the cards zip folder and expanded that into your WIP folder. Before we start working in the chapter, we need to change our color settings from the ones we set up last chapter. So go into Edit and choose Color Settings. You're going to change your color settings to a new custom setting. You're going to keep your Adobe RGB 1998 for your working space. Change the other three color management policies for RGB, CMYK, and gray to preserve embedded profiles. For policy mismatches, check mark the Ask When Opening and Ask When Pasting, and missing profiles is also checked Ask When Opening. And save that, say OK. You're going to create a new file. The dialog box for the 2021 has changed, so we're going to be leaving our document type as custom rather than having that big dialog box that opened up. All of this stuff is now listed in the drop downs, so we are going to use for document type, we're simply going to do a custom. The width is going to be 7 1/4 inches. Make sure you're using inches. Our height is going to be 5 1/4. The resolution should be 300. You're using an RGB color mode with 8 bits. The background contents should be changed to transparent. We're working with the working RGB mode. Make sure that is selected. And you can then say OK. Save that file. I forgot to name it. It should be named Festival. Save that in your WIP folder as Festival, and make sure that you are saving it as a Photoshop file. Say OK to the embedded warning. And make sure your rulers are showing. If you do not have them, go up to View and Show Rulers. Using any method that you prefer, place ruler guides 1/8 of an inch from each edge. So remember, we can do that in View, New Guide Layout, and create your guides. And you might want to go in and lock your guides. After you have your guides, save your file. At the bottom of the tool panel, change to your default colors, and then swap the default colors so that you have white for the foreground and black for the background. Selecting your layer, you can select your layer options and select to flatten image. That's going to turn this into a white background, and then go to Edit, Fill, and change to fill this with the background color, which is black, and say OK. Then go to File, Save As, and name this file BLVD, which would be Boulevard, and make sure you saved it as a Photoshop file. We set how to handle images with profiles that don't match our working profiles, and for images that don't have embedded profiles. These issues are important when you work with files that come from more than just one source, especially when you're getting files that are provided to you by someone else, like a client. Sometimes they come from a lot of different sources. Next, open up the lights JPEG. You're going to get a missing profile dialog box. Check Leave as is, Don't Color Manage, and click OK. Go to Select All and Edit Copy. You can then close that file and in the Boulevard file, edit and paste. Rename that layer Lights and save. Say OK in the Maximize Compatibility warning, and now open also the original file that we created, Festival. Then open the Bloom JPEG and read the dialog box. There is an embedded profile mismatch there. Use the embedded profile and say OK to that. Copy the contents of this. Shortcut keys are Control A, Control C, and then paste those into the Festival file, Control V. In the dialog box asking what you would like to do with this copied image, choose Convert. OK. Rename that layer Bloom. Save your file, Control S, and we will continue next with Stage 2. Section 2 starts on page 224, Manipulating Pixels. Before we had the digital stuff, if you wanted to get a different angle or something else on a photo, you would have to just take another photo. And so with our digital editing, we can manipulate the actual content of an image. We can scale things to different sizes. We can move them to different locations. We can change a focal point. So we're going to do some different techniques to change the content in a photo that was supplied to us by a client. The first thing we're going to work with is applying content-aware scaling. We want to be working with the Boulevard file. Picking up your Move tool and making the lights layer the active layer, we're going to be manipulating the image. The focus of this image right now, the focal point is just directly down the center. We are going to add some type and put other things in this image to make the postcard that we are wanting. So we need to change the image's focal point. With the Move tool, click on the light layer and hold down your Shift key and drag to the left, because that is really where we would like to have the focal point running straight up there, but then we're left with this black space on the side. That doesn't work, so undo that. Let's try doing some scaling. So if we go to Edit, Transform, and select Scale, Shift click on the left center handle and drag left until the path goes about 1/3. Well, that's not the best thing. Let me undo this, and I'm just going to try dragging left, and there we go. That has stretched my image, and that's put it where I want, but everything is manipulated and looks horrible. So let's cancel out of that. This time we're going to go into Edit, Content Aware Scale, and we're going to drag left until the path is approximately 1/3 of the way across the image. There are some distortions that are still coming up, but the lights that are hanging over the path, which are the most obvious point of detail, are not distorted that much. Other areas are the tree, the bench. They're distorted, but they're not really as bad as what they normally would have been. Now, if you follow what it says in the book, let me undo this, and I'm going to hold my shift key down and stretch. It's going to do the stretch all the way across and enlarge things, and we really only want to do the center handle. So don't, I know the book says to hold down the shift, but if you do that, it's going to distort the height, or it's going to enlarge the height as well, and we really only want it working with the width. There's another section about content-aware scaling on the top of page 226, and I think you'll find that interesting, and it'll explain a little more about it. So let's commit that change by hitting your enter key or the check mark at the top of the options panel. Next, we're going to use the content-aware move tool. This time make the festival file the active file, and we're going to pick up the lasso tool. Draw a lasso around the flower in the center of the image. We want to kind of pull this area and grab just, I'm going to actually pull that up just a little bit so I get some of that background as well. There we go. Oh, I could take some of that out. I got a little more than I intended to. There, I like that better. Picking up the move tool, if I take this and drag this off to the right, I'm going to leave a hole. So let me cancel that, undo, and this time I'm going to choose the content-aware move tool. Now, the content-aware move tool is going to be under the healing brush. So let's find that. Make sure that move is selected in the mode and transform on drop is checked. And then click on the image and drag the flowers to the right. And when you're happy with the placement, click on the Commit Transform button, and you'll see that the computer will generate a fill. Now, if you don't like the way it turned out, redo it. Mine came out a little funny that time, so I'm going to try mine a second time. And that's a little bit better. That area is a little bizarre, so you might want to touch some of that up, but it makes a fairly decent copy. There, I did mine over one more time, and this time it came out with a really decent image. I just redid the selection, and I like the way it came out much better. Then you can deselect, Control D, and save this file. And then we'll move on to the next section.